Good afternoon, I'm Milton Walker with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. A reminder as well that you can download our One Spot Media app in the Google Play Store or the App Store. That's the number 1, followed by the words Spot and Media. Deputy Police Commissioner Clifford Blake has been officially appointed Acting Police Commissioner. When contacted this morning, Mr. Blake confirmed this appointment. He is expected to remain in the post until the Police Service Commission appoints a new commissioner. George Quallo stepped down from the post yesterday after serving as commissioner for 9 months. Meanwhile, head of the Community Safety and Security Branch, Senior Superintendent of Police, Steve McGregor, has thrown his hat into the ring for the JCF's top post. He made a declaration on Wednesday afternoon while addressing some students from the St. James High School.
I am a prime candidate for the immediate succession plan. And I am going to be here. And Steve McGregor is going to continue to impact what is happening in our country. Because I am one who is stepping up as a leader. Because we need more leaders to lead our country the right way.
SSP McGregor's announcement comes days after retired Senior Superintendent Renita Adams announced that he will be willing to take on the post of Commissioner. State Minister in the Ministry of Education with responsibility for youth, Floyd Green, is encouraging Jamaicans to stop circulating the child pornography video that emerged on social media yesterday. Persons on the internet have been sharing the video with the hope that it will lead to the finding of the adult. But Minister Green says despite the good intentions, that activity is illegal.
The wanton sharing of the video is wrong and is a criminal offense. And one of the things I have said to the police, we will have to start prosecuting people who, instead of trying to help the situation, seem to take joy in sharing such a disgusting video all over on social media. It should not be done. And what we are actually doing is, again, bringing more pain and suffering to the child who is already the victim. So I ask people to desist. The only way the video should be shared is with the authorities. It has already been passed to the authorities. So those in the possession of the video, I would suggest to them to delete it because they are in fact committing a criminal offense.
The police, and specifically the cybercrime unit, yesterday said it launched an investigation to determine the origin of the video. 2 men are dead following a head-on collision on the Saltmarsh Main Road in Trelawney yesterday evening. The deceased have not yet been identified. Reports indicate that about 7 o'clock, a tanker overtook a line of traffic on the Saltmarsh Main Road. A vehicle heading in the opposite direction was unable to stop and slammed into the tanker. 2 men were in the vehicle, however one died on the spot and the other was pronounced dead at hospital. The driver of the tanker was taken to hospital for treatment. Inspector of Police at the Falmouth station, Ralph Medley, urged motorists to obey the speed limit and issued this warning.
A fine highway, but there are a lot of careless drivers who take that opportunity and breach the rule of law, breach the road code, everything. And it causes that the road is not so nice during the night. It is dark, but there's no justification for what happened. Because I'm sure that the family of the deceased men, they are mourning now just because the carelessness of another person, another driver.
Trelawney has now recorded 4 fatalities on the road since the start of the year. A man is dead after he was attacked by armed men at his home last night in Clarendon. The dead man has been identified as 41-year-old Devi Coleman, also known as Blacks, from Pusey District. It was reported that Mr. Coleman drove to his home when he was pounced on by his attackers who shot him multiple times in the upper body and head. He ran and then collapsed at the back of his house. Meanwhile, in the capital, Maypen, a 36-year-old barber was shot and injured on Fernley Avenue shortly after 7 last night. It's reported that the victim was at his workplace when a lone gunman entered and opened fire, hitting him. He managed to wrestle the man, who fled on a waiting motorbike. The area was searched and a 9mm weapon was found. Chairman of the St. James Parish Council, Homer Davis, is lauding the government for the state of public emergency in the parish. Speaking at a recent award ceremony for Justices of the Peace, the mayor of Montego Bay noted that the state of emergency is welcomed by all as criminal elements will be kept at bay.
It was long in coming. The cry has gotten louder, and you have responded to the cry of the people. I was also told that I should convey to you that every little thing will be all right at the end of this affairs.
Another by-election with a new controversy, as the two main political parties gear up for the Northwestern St. Andrew by-election. The main question on everybody's mind is, did the Jamaica Labour Party, JLP, follow its constitution when selecting Nigel Clark as its candidate? That question is being answered by an academic, Andre Stevens, who was speaking on TVJ's Smile Jamaica on Thursday. More from TVJ's Jeline Pearson.
After nearly 30 years of serving as Member of Parliament for Northwestern St. Andrew, Derek Smith has resigned. And the two major parties are selecting candidates for the upcoming by-election. Recently, news emerged that the advisor to the Prime Minister, Nigel Clark, will represent the JLP. However, a postgraduate student whose PhD thesis is on political parties in Jamaica, Andrew Stevens, has questioned this decision because both Dr. Clark and Derek Smith's son, Dwayne, were vying for the seat.
In the event that more than one candidate is approved, then there ought to be a selection process. My understanding is that both Mr. Dwayne Smith and Dr. Nigel Clark were approved by the selection committee. It so happened that the committee had a preference for Dr. Clark, but in any event, both persons were selected. And then what the Constitution says is that if both persons are selected, there should be a selection meeting where delegates from the constituency vote on who they prefer.
However, Mr. Stevens is suggesting that selecting these two candidates to represent the party is nepotism.
It's a very practiced thing in Jamaican politics, right? I could name a list of persons who
practice.
Right,
they practice ethical.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting question because I think one could make that argument about Nigel Clark too. He's a confidant of the Prime Minister.
Okay.
Dwayne Smith is a councillor in that constituency. He's a two-time elected councillor, so presumably he knows the constituency better than Nigel Clark.
Absolutely.
And so some persons have been saying the Prime Minister is just pushing Nigel Clark into that constituency for his personal benefits.
Mr. Stevens added that the party is trying to avoid the selection process from the local electors. He adds that the situation can still change if...
I think he could challenge it in court and say the party didn't follow the Constitution because they didn't have a selection meeting. But at any rate, the selection meeting doesn't guarantee that
you also said it would be the central executive who would decide anyway.
Right. I think what Mr. Smith is probably banking on is that if this selection meeting happens and the delegates vote for Mr. Dwayne Smith, that will embarrass the party into selecting him as a candidate. But it doesn't provide any kind of constitutional obligation on the party to do so.
Meanwhile, the People's National Party, PNP, says by next week it will sign off on the person who will represent it in the by-election. Jeline Pearson, TVJ News.
Former Prime Minister P.J. Patterson has taken issue with the Jamaican government's recent decision to abstain from a vote at the United Nations condemning the American government's decision to relocate its embassy in Israel to the city of Jerusalem. Several other Caribbean countries backed the resolution, but Jamaica opted for the middle ground by abstaining from the vote. According to Mr. Patterson, this is a withdrawal of leadership on an important issue for which Jamaica has long been known.
We have never reaped any substantial or lasting benefits from groveling or genuflection. We have won when Jamaica has united with other countries to pursue a common cause by the leadership we have provided at the political, diplomatic, and technical levels for CARICOM, the OAS, the United Nations, the non-aligned, and the Commonwealth.
The former Prime Minister was at the regional headquarters of the University of the West Indies for the launch of a book by former Jamaican ambassador to Washington, Dr. Richard Bernal. He reflected on how Jamaica, as a small nation, has been able to influence the foreign policy of the United States, a global superpower, over decades. And as far as he was concerned, the decision to abstain from the vote was not in keeping with that tradition of leadership.
The non-aligned and the developing world will question whether we have lost our sense of international morality.
In news overseas, new information is that controversial FBI agent Peter Strzok played a key role in the reopening of the investigation into Hillary Clinton's email just days before the 2016 U.S. presidential election. The new revelation comes as Republicans accuse him of being sympathetic to Clinton while seeking to undermine Donald Trump during the heat of the 2016 campaign season. The details from the CNN.
Yeah, emails that we have obtained, Jake, actually show that Peter Strzok actually played a key role in that major decision just days before the 2016 election to send that letter to Congress reopening the Clinton email investigation, upending the Clinton campaign at such a critical moment of the campaign season. Now, these October 27th, 2016 emails that we have obtained show that Peter Strzok actually wrote the first draft of that letter, co-wrote it with another colleague, and they sent it to other FBI officials who added some of their suggested changes, and that formed the basis of the letter that Comey sent the next day to Congress announcing the reopening of that investigation. Now, we are also told separately by a source familiar with the matter that Strzok was supportive of reopening this investigation after it was found that some of these emails were on the laptop of that disgraced former congressman Anthony Weiner. Now, Jake, this is significant because Strzok has been accused by Republicans of being biased because of these text messages that Congress has obtained between him and that FBI lawyer Lisa Page, saying that these two people were unfair to then candidate Trump, given some of the sharp messages they exchanged about then candidate Trump. But clearly he was involved in another key matter about this letter, and that letter, as you know, Hillary Clinton blamed for costing her the presidency.
In sports, doping bans on 28 Russian athletes were overturned today, throwing the International Olympic Committee's policy on Russia into chaos just over a week before the start of the Winter Games in South Korea.
The Court of Arbitration, which has made its announcement today from South Korea, of course, ahead of the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics in that country, has basically upheld the appeals and overturned the sanctions on 28 of Russia's Olympic athletes. That means the lifetime bans that those athletes who participated in disciplines like the bobsleigh, cross-country skiing, speed skating, the luge, winter sports like that, those sanctions, those lifetime bans in many cases have been lifted, and the medals that they were disqualified from winning. Many of them are former world champions, reigning Olympic champions that won medals at the Sochi Games here in Russia in 2014. Those medals were taken from them because of this ban. They've now been restored to them. And so, you know, this will be seen as a major victory by the Russians. In fact, one Russian news agency, Interfax, is already quoting the head of the Russian Olympic Committee, saying that he is happy that the Court of Arbitration has decided to restore Russian athletes' good name. And I expect we're going to hear more from this from Russian officials in the hours ahead, because this has been an issue which has, you know, I think one of the issues that's really rocked the Kremlin and rocked the nation, the banning of it.
And that's the Midday News. I'm Milton Walker. Join us at 7 for Primetime News. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, good afternoon.